Democratic Services, from Mason Nash on my immediate right, Democratic Services Manager, Marcia Eccleston on my left, Head of Law and Governance and Monitoring Officer. Also in the room are Richard Burrell, Head of Resources and S151 Officer, Paul Clark from Warwickshire County Council, where he's the Internal Audit Manager, and Karen Jones from Assets. Good, welcome everybody. Okay, housekeeping. Committee members, when invited to address the meeting, please ensure your microphone is switched on so it's picked up via the live audio feed. When you're finished addressing the meeting, please turn off your microphone immediately. Please ensure you have switched off or to silent any other devices you may have that may interrupt the proceedings. Please note that this meeting is also being broadcast live, and members of the public not in attendance today are able to view the proceedings. Okay, good. Right, let's move to the agenda. Item 1, apologies for absence. Howard.
Yes, good afternoon, Chair. We have apologies from Councillor Pertigella, Councillor Alcock, Councillor Harmer and Councillor Stanley. We also have apologies from Mr Mike Dutton and Mr Edward McAllister-Smith and from Councillor Kim James.
Okay, quite a list. Moving on, disclosure of interest. Do any committee members have any interest they would like to declare in relation to items on the agenda? No? Good. Okay, moving on to item 3, minutes. Are there any points members wish to raise? Otherwise, I would... Sorry. Point of order. Oh, sorry.
Point of order, Mr Chairman.
Have I missed something?
I'm about to raise it.
Okay.
Can I refer members to page 59 of the papers, which refers section 19 of the Constitution, 19.1, which states that the chairman shall move, the chair shall move that the minutes of the previous meeting of the committee be approved as a correct record. On the agenda we have 2 sets of minutes. One is the previous and one is not the previous. And therefore my question, where I'd like a comment from the monitoring officer, is it constitutional for us to consider the minutes of a meeting which is not the previous meeting, i.e. the minutes of the meeting held on the 13th of November? Should they not have already been considered at the previous meeting?
Thank you, Chair. So regarding the query that you've raised, what I'm understanding is that the minutes that are before the meeting today are not the minutes of the last meeting, which was in December. Is that correct?
No, that's not correct.
Could you clarify?
We have 2 sets of minutes. One is for the meeting held in November, and one is for a meeting held in December. As I read the Constitution, we are entitled at this meeting to consider the minutes of the previous meeting. The previous meeting was on December the 11th. We are not entitled, as I understand it, to consider the minutes of the meeting held in November. Am I correct?
Understood. Thank you for clarifying that for me. Just allow me just to pause and query that with Democratic Services. Thank you, Councillor Harvey. Thank you, Chair. I've just made some inquiries with Democratic Services. Thank you for raising it. Obviously, the Constitution is clear on the minutes, but there is also a point to make regarding the committee rules, which allow the chair, obviously, to preside over the meeting. So what I would state at this stage is if the chair is happy to receive it, then we proceed. happy to receive it, Chair?
I'm happy to receive it, although I'm wondering if Councillor Harvey has a follow-up point.
I know this is trivial and all the rest of it, but as I read the words, we are not entitled to consider the minutes of the meeting on November the 11th. But I will bow to the opinion which has been expressed. What I would say, however, is that being a member of the Planning Committee, for instance, I know that on a number of occasions, more than one set of minutes has been approved or been sought to be approved at Planning Committee meetings, and I don't see that that is consistent with the terms of the Constitution. I don't mind which way we do it, whether we, strictly speaking, keep to only approving the previous minutes meetings at a meeting, or we alter the Constitution to enable multiple sets of minutes to be approved. I'm not arguing about the content of the minutes. I'm arguing about the meaning of the words and making sure that governance is properly conducted. That's my point.
Chair, if I may respond,
Yes,
Chair.
of course.
Thank you, Councillor. That's very clear, but I go back to the point I say. The Chair presides. If he decides that he's happy to receive it, there's a proposal, it's a seconder, then we proceed on that basis. The detail as to what we do going forward might be the subject of a review at some point, but not today.
Thank you. Good. Right. Well, I'm happy to proceed and to announce that the minutes are duly noted, unless there are any other comments. Councillor Inchester.
Thank you, Chair. Just to say that I wasn't at the meeting on the 13th of November, but on the 11th of December I was here.
Okay. Yeah, I'm advised that perhaps we should take them separately. Are there any points to raise on the 13th of November committee meeting minutes? If not, they're duly noted. And what about the 11th of December, our last meeting? Any comments? No? Okay, then I think we'll take those as duly noted. Thank you. Right. Moving on, item 4, public participation. There have been no questions raised by the public. Item 5, standards. I invite Marcia Eccleston to present her report. Please, Marcia.
Thank you, Chair. Well, the report's before you to be noted. You've probably read it in already quite a lot of detail. I just wanted to pick up on two parts of the report that have been updated and slightly amended. Table 6 refers to the unreasonable complaints policy, which you heard about previously. And it's just to advise, because there is a responsibility on us to keep you updated, that in Q4 we had an additional matter for which we had to invoke the policy. When you saw it last, we'd only invoked once at Q3, so it's moved on. There's a further one for Q4. So that's the first thing. In terms of Table 7, the outcome of corporate complaints referred to local government, social care ombudsman, where the number has been upheld annually. As part of good practice towards the council plan, this is now included as an item, which has also been suggested by some members of the Audit and Standards, and so that's now included in the report. There is no report for 23 to 24 yet, because that's not been uploaded yet by the local government and social care ombudsman website. That's it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Marcia. Okay. Do we have any comments on the report, please? Councillor Shenton.
Thank you, Chair. And these are just comments. I note that internal reviews seem to be quite high in this year compared to last year. And the same with, further down, Data Protection Act requests, which are already 50% higher than last year. So taking those in order, is there a pattern to these increases? Why the sudden, in terms of internal reviews, why is it running at approximately 50% higher? Do we understand what's going on there?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Shenton. At this particular stage, no, but you'll understand and appreciate that the public have a right to ask for whatever information they want, whenever they want, and when we do, we respond to that, which can obviously impact on what the number is per month, per quarter, etc.
Yeah, I suppose it's understanding the trend that underpins those numbers, you know, what's going on. But the Data Protection Act requests, again, 50% higher with a quarter to go. Is there a theme in there that's driving this?
So we get lots of requests, an awful lot of requests, and at the moment, as I've already explained, we're just dealing with the demand of the work coming in. Obviously, we're keeping a record of the outcome as to the requests, but there's nothing that would say that we're being asked because of a particular reason. There's none of that. Otherwise, I'd be reporting that to the meeting today.
Could I ask a question or two about Table 1? Looking down it, there seem to be rather more parish council ones this time, and a number which have been closed because there was no breach of the code. I wondered if we were looking at we might be looking at some kind of reminding parish councils exactly what does constitute a breach of the code, thereby saving officer time. And the rather general points of 1 and 2 and one of the others get raised quite a lot because they could apply across the board, 1 and 2 and 5. I wonder if there's a possibility of more guidance on that, but obviously leave that to the monitoring officer. The other point was I wondered whether we could go back to the practice of naming the councils involved in a confidential way if thought proper. But it is useful to know which parish councils, I speak from that point of view, are involved, whether we are seeing a pattern, as we have in the past, and of course useful for a parish council representative, minor point, but to know if their council's involved, because they should then declare an interest, I suppose. Again, I leave that to the monitoring officer. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for your comments. Obviously, dealing with complaints means we have to balance how we present them so that we preserve confidentialities. So that's the first thing. Understanding the trends and patterns is absolutely key, so I'd agree with you on that. And if there was an overarching and very obvious trend, I would come back here and be sharing that with you. That is not the position currently, but I would agree that there are more parish councils currently the subject of code of conduct complaint related matters than, of course, the district. But of course, I could come again in the next quarter and it changes. So at that point, I'd be able to provide more detail about what trends I may or may not be seeing.
Could I just follow up? I mentioned naming of parish councils because this was what was done in the past. I don't know how confidentiality was dealt with, but it was. And my point about the complaints is really not so much the number coming up, but the number that seemed to, in fact, show no breach of the code, and whether there was some way of pointing out to parish councils how they can complain within the code and therefore not waste officers' time. But I've said that, I'll leave that with you.
Thank you. I'll just come back on that and say that at the time that someone makes a complaint, for them it matters, so we have to deal with it in a particular way. So that's the first thing that I would say. Where there is any learning, that is relayed back.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions? No? Okay, so the recommendation is that Appendix 1 to the report is noted. Do I have a proposer? Okay. Thank you, Councillor Fradgley. Seconder? Councillor Harvey. Thank you. Good. Okay. Moving on. We have the procedure and appointment of parish town council representatives, and I invite Mason Nash to present his report.
Thank you, Chair. The reasoning for the request for a recruitment panel is set out in the committee report, with the terms of reference for the panel set out in Appendix 1. I would add that this process has not been undertaken for 10 years, and therefore we should at least expect numerous requests as advised in the report, as it is unworkable that ASC should examine all applications. If the committee are happy to proceed with the request for a panel, I would like to make an amendment to Appendix 1. With regard to Appendix 1 and the heading Future Panels, I would like to insert after the final reference to parish representative, and then on ASC or a parish town councillor, basically confirming that if the parish representative resigns whilst on ASC or resigns as a parish town councillor during the appointment term, the panel will sit. The options are set out in paragraph 2, with 2.1 being the preferred option. With the amendment I have made, Chair, the recommendation to Council is set out in the report. I have to take questions.
Thank you, Mason. Yes, Councillor Bolton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One or two things related to this. As the previous minutes say, Councillor James and I were both very much in support of reviewing this. We did, as it says there, draw up, along with the then monitoring officer, a role profile for the job, really because we were worried that there might not be applicants, which may be a bit gloomy, but people don't necessarily know about the role, and they don't necessarily think it matters very much, whereas, as is said in some of the material, this council, very much to its credit, believes in the importance of having parish council representatives. I believe Warwick's district doesn't, but I'm not sure, but certainly several don't. If I could just have confirmed that this role profile, as amended by Mr. Grafton, will go out along with the literature, the application pack, I think it's called.
Yes and no.
Do can continue.
Basically, what I did was amalgamate the 2014 procedure. I looked at the procedure that Councillor James forwarded to me. I also looked at the 2021 protocol, and basically I mashed them all together and streamlined them. So I do have the protocol here, and if we could copy it, then all the members could see it. But I didn't think, I thought it was a little bit cumbersome, and I thought it was a little bit too detailed, to be fair. We're trying to entice parish representatives, and I thought the original protocols from way back were too complicated and too complex. So I have streamlined them now to 3 pages. The last recruitment pack that was done in 2014 was 6 pages, and even I lost the will to live going through that, I must admit. So it is down to 3 pages, and I think it's clear what we expect of a parish representative.
And the enticement is still there, I hope.
I'm hoping.
The other point I could make, and again, you may be doing this, could this all be passed to the Warwickshire Association of Local Councils for them to pass out both the event happening, the procedures, anything to get people interested? I did have a word with them when we were drawing this up, and they were very happy to do that. And they, of course, have a, I think, weekly bulletin that goes out to parish councils, and it's another way of gathering in. It should not be too difficult to do, I think.
The process is that we will send this to the 81 parish councils probably on the 5th of April. That's the deadline for these to be sent out, and they have 6-7 weeks to respond. So all 81 parishes will see this protocol with the nomination forms, and then hopefully they'll send us back some nomination forms, which would be really good. We could only, with WOLC, it would only apply to the parish councils within the district, so it would not apply to any parishes outside the district of Stratford.
No, but we're talking about the parishes within the district, aren't we? So that would be relevant. The other point was, as far as my memory goes, indeed, Councillor James, if here, would support this. You have in the past, and of course can change it, only asked a council to nominate 1 representative for the post, not 2, as is suggested here somewhere. I just mention this because it might be worth considering so that there aren't hordes of people.
No, both your roles will expire at the end of March, and then basically we'll be looking for 2 representatives from April onwards to basically confirm in the July ASC and also Council ASC.
I'm sorry, I've not made myself clear. I realise there are 2 representatives to appoint, but in the past, each council was only asked to nominate 1 person, not 2. And I just mentioned that. The other thing I might as well ask at the same time, I wasn't quite clear what the term of office would be in the slightly odd circumstances that this time it would not coincide with district elections, whereas the idea is every 4 years coinciding with district elections. So will this be a slightly shorter term of office to get in tune with the district one?
Take the first question. We will ask parish councils to make 2 nominations if they wish. The second point is, yes, it will be for only a 3-year term up to the May elections in 27, and then afterwards it would be every 4 years. And that is set out in the protocol as well.
Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Chairman. Democratic Services deals with elections. Recruitment normally lies in the hands of HR. I'm concerned, or I need to know, I think, that the process we're going to use for the panel meet the requirements of employment law, albeit I know that this isn't employment in that sense, but I do know that HR recruit, and they recruit fairly, and I wonder what is the legal input required from HR in the operation of the panel and its activities.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Harvey, as I understand it, the situation will be that whilst it's delegated to Democratic Services to make sure things are done in a particular way, they will be working with all the right partners, including HR, if they need to.
If it's a recruitment activity, I think they need to.
Your comments noted.
Good. Any... Councillor Shenton.
It's just a comment, really. This seems, having a subcommittee seems an eminently good way to deal with this. Take the process away from ASC so we don't get bogged down with lots of applications. To me, this seems eminently the right way to go, so I would support this.
Good. Any other comments? No? Okay. So the recommendation is that a parish representative recruitment panel subcommittee be formed in accordance with the terms of reference set out in Appendix 1 with the amendment to oversee the shortlisting, interviews and recommendation of appointments of parish and town council representatives to ASC and to the council thereafter. So do I have a proposer? Councillor Shenton, thank you. And a seconder?
Yes,
Councillor
happy to
Ostrander.
second that.
Thank you. Good. Right. Okay. I think moving on. Do we need a vote? Okay. Sorry, we need a vote. All those in favour? Okay, I think that's carried unanimously. Good. Okay, moving on to governance. I invite Mason Ash to present a second report.
Thanks, Chair. I have no need to go back through the history of this matter, as that is clearly set out in the report. The working group met on Tuesday, 5th of March, to discuss the draft schedule that has now become Appendix 1. Save for a few minor amendments, the group were happy with the proposals put forward. Upon reflection, I would like to make one change which was not put to the group, and that is the title of Parish Champion in Appendix 1. I believe the title should say Woke Stratford-on-Avon area and parish town councils within the district of Stratford-on-Avon. the name parish champion can then be bracketed under the title or under the name of the councillor, because the parish champion itself is not an outside body, but attends outside bodies. I would also refer members to 1.9 to 1.12 of the report. The group requested that members clarify any terms of reference with the Democratic Services Manager or the Monitoring Officer where an outside body did not have a terms of reference. Second point, clear signposted minutes of these outside bodies where applicable. Third point, an annual review of outside bodies, so the group will sit once a year. And members of outside bodies are reminded that those representing the council should update that committee in February each year. I would also refer members to the second sentence of the risk assessment, as this is an important factor when considering the recommendations. Chair, the options are set out in the report, with the preferred option being 2.1 with regard to the recommendations to council set out in the report. Chair.
Thank you, Mesa. Good. Comments? Councillor Harvey.
Question, Chairman.
Question.
Could Mr Nash repeat his reference to the parish champion, because I'm not sure, and Walk, I'm not sure I clocked it all. Yeah. Please.
Okay, under parish council champion, under title, we've got parish council champion. My recommendation would be to amend that to Walk, Stratford-on-Avon area. There's meetings for that area, and parish and town councils within the district of Stratford-on-Avon. And then I would bracket parish council champion underneath that, or I would put parish council champion underneath the councillor's name. As I said before, parish council champion itself is not an outside body.
I'm sure that's been well crafted, and I'm quite happy to go along with that. What I would say, however, is that I think the definition of an outside body, as specified in the papers, is, let's say, it's unusual. If I can give you two alternatives. The Local Government Association writes as follows: the LGA has relationships with a wide range of organisations, some of which the LGA formally appoints elected members to represent local government interests on. These appointments are known as, quote, outside body appointments. An alternative comes from Cambridge City Council, which has a very straightforward definition, which goes: the City Council appoints members, and less often officers, to serve on a wide range of organisations outside the council, which can include as directors of companies, trustees of charities, members of management committees, and other roles on public bodies and voluntary organisations. That seems to me to be, those two definitions, particularly the Cambridge City Council, seems to be much more explicit, much more simple, and not convoluted in the way that I interpret the definition that's been used here. It wouldn't, given your explanation about parish champion, it wouldn't make any difference to the list of outside bodies referred to in the paper, but it would just be simpler and less contentious. And I really don't see why a straightforward definition like the Cambridge City Council type of definition has been mucked about with, to put it bluntly.
Do you have a comment, Mason?
Well, I do. I've looked through a lot of council definitions, and they all seem to be different. I looked at, I did put this definition towards the group, and I thought it was more relevant to the workings of the current district council. I agree that the local government association, there may be appointments to that at certain times, but I'm taking this at present, and basically we do not appoint anybody to the local government association. I do agree that the information that comes from them is very helpful to the council, but it's not something that we actually meet with them to basically confirm the effect and impact on district council services. So many councils have got their own views of the definition of outside body. I put that to the group, the definition that I proposed, and they were happy with it.
And I chaired that group, and I was happy with it. Unless I misheard what you said, Councillor Harvey, the Cambridge definition seems to me one way, in that they appoint members of external groups. I think what's key about, unless I misunderstood what you said, the key about MESA's definition is it's the affect and or impact on any district council service, and that seemed to me to be important, that it was a two-way street, that we put councillors on these groups because those groups do work that matters to district council services. But that's my view. Councillor Hencher-Serafin.
Yes, as I was on that group too, and I agree, and I feel it's been simplified a lot better, and I agree with what has been proposed and what we agreed on that meeting. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have other comments or questions about the report? No? Okay. So, there are 3 recommendations to Council, which I will deal as one, unless there's any objection.
There's also the amendment to the parish champion as the committee.
Ah, okay. Okay, do we do that first?
If yes, we could vote on it. It would be helpful.
Okay, we'll take first the amendment to the parish council champion description. Yes, so I need a proposer, please. Councillor Fradgley, thank you. And seconder, Councillor Ostrander, thank you. Okay, let's have a vote. Do we agree with the change? Yes, I think that's unanimously carried. Good. Okay, so the 3 recommendations are from the working group, that the recommendations from the working group be approved and the list of outside bodies on the council's website be updated accordingly, that the working group monitor and review the list of outside bodies on an annual basis, and that the notice of motion be supported. Okay, do I have a proposer? Councillor Hencher-Serafin, thank you, and a seconder. Thank you to Councillor Fradgley, and a vote. Who's in favour? Okay, 4 in favour, and against?
Does that include neutral or not?
Oh, do I?
Yes, you do.
Oh, okay. Okay. I was only going to do that if I thought I would be needed. Okay, against? So abstentions, 2 abstentions. Okay, good. So that's carried. Thank you. Right, moving on. Right, the item number 8 is the Gender Neutrality Working Group findings, and I invite Marcia Eccleston to present her report. Please, Marcia.
Thank you, Chair. The report obviously is quite full and before you, so I wasn't going to go into the greatest of details. Again, a working group was set up with terms of reference, as you can see. They're appended to the report, and the findings of that group are detailed, therefore, in the report. So I'm not going to go into the detail of it, but what I will say is the findings after consultation look forward, they don't look back. So what's being suggested doesn't talk about changing what we already have. It's talking about what will happen going forward. And obviously today is to recommend it goes to full council because that's where the actual decision needs to be made.
Thank you, Marcia. Good. Okay, comments, questions? Councillor Harvey.
This is becoming boring, isn't it? Can I ask a question of the monitoring officer? The Constitution as it stands, does it meet the requirements of the Equalities Act?
So it meets the requirements of the Equalities Act. You're right to say that. That's why the reference in the report that initially came to Audit and Standards says how we can make it further comply with what the majority of councillors would want to be considered around gender neutrality, etc. So it was already compliant. It's moving forward in today's society to reflect and be more inclusive.
Thank you. Thank you. Can I carry on?
Please do.
Thank you. There is one point of which I don't think was intended as a point of discussion for the working group, but having presented the papers, it strikes me as a question. And that is on page 53, paragraphs 3.3 and 3.4. And there are different processes in 3.3 and 3.4 for the appointment stroke election of a chairman and, a chair and a vice chair. One is secret ballot and one is by show of hands. And I don't understand why there should be a difference. That's a question.
Chair, thank you. Thank you, Councillor. Just on that point, and I know it's sort of a side issue to the actual issue that we're talking about today, I wonder if we can take that offline, because there is going to be a further review of the Constitution generally, as we do every time it's required under the Constitution, to look to see if it's up to date or if there's anything we need to amend to bring in line. So perhaps we take that offline and that can be looked at in more detail at that point.
Yes, I mean, my understanding is that this section has been included as an illustration rather than something that we need to discuss today.
Fine. I've got a whole series of grammaticals and punctuation which I don't think you want to go through. But
I'm sure we don't.
But if we're going to publish this, if we're going to amend it, it needs to be grammatically correct. And I'd like an opportunity, particularly on the terms of reference, to go through with the monitoring officer and at least make my observations known. Would that be within the, with the agreement of other members of the committee, that we could do that?
Chair, if I may, just come back in and say the terms of reference, yet again, were agreed by the committee. If there are grammatical issues, then clearly that can be looked at, but the actual terms of reference were agreed by the subcommittee at the time.
I don't seek to change the content in any substantive way at all. It is merely things like references to their when it should be its, use of who when it should be that, etc., etc. Those sort of points.
Your points are noted, and obviously everyone's grammatical interpretations are different, but it's noted, and I'll hand to the chair as to his decision on that.
Some grammatical observations are correct and some aren't. That's the point.
And I've passed back to the chair. So, Chair, what would you prefer?
Within the working group, this came up, and I think, like you, Councillor Harvey, find ungrammatical usage somewhat irritating. However, there is also a question which was raised within the working group of the officer's time to, ideally, one would rewrite the whole of the Constitution and not use personal pronouns at all wherever possible. And that would get around the problem by actually using job titles or descriptions. However, as I say, that would take a considerable amount of officer time to do that. And so it was decided that we would go for this form, at least initially, and when there was a larger, longer, wider review, to take your comments fully into consideration. Not maybe an ideal situation, but I think a very pragmatic one. Yes.
And just to clarify, the terms of reference when they were attached did say draft across them. So in terms of making amendments, I'm sure we can do that if it's needed.
It all depends on what standard you want to work to.
Of course. Councillor Shenton.
Yeah, I find myself supporting Councillor Harvey on this. I mean, if we're going to publish a constitution amended, we want it grammatically, we want everything grammatically correct. If we're publishing, if we're going to, because we're not the only ones that will look at this, anybody can turn this up on the website. And all Councillor Harvey is offering is to point out where he sees the grammatical errors. It's not a rewrite, it's just get it right first time rather than going through it time and time again. I have to say, when I put a report out, the first person I ask is Councillor Harvey, because I know grammatically he will put it right for me. So Councillor Harvey is merely offering his expertise, which is far better than mine. If you've got a problem with your tax return, I can probably help you, but not when it comes to grammar, probably not. I think it's a fair point that Councillor Harvey makes, that it is about getting it right first time. It's not about being critical, it's just about getting it right first time.
Chair, if I may just come back and say, I think that we've had the debate, if you don't mind. What I will just add is two things. Firstly, what I think I may have mentioned earlier, but you may not have heard, was when this was attached, it had draft across it. So we are more than happy for it to be considered again before it finally goes out as the final document, if that's what's wished of in the circumstances. So I think we're having a bit of a circular argument unnecessarily.
As a matter of interest, how long is this document? How many pages? How much work would you say was be involved?
So that was in the report, that there'd be a lot of work involved in actually getting the report done. And I think under one of the items that references resource or human resource in this, that there might be some time that would need to be allowed for it to be amended. So I think that was referenced in the report. As to the terms of reference, obviously that's just one page, so which was marked as draft. That could be done fairly quickly and clarified, but it would take us some time with the Constitution to do that, and we made that clear in the report, I believe, that you have before you.
Thank you. Councillor Ostrander.
Thank you. I'm really pleased to see this change being proposed. I just wondered, and this may be treading on the toes of the committee who put this forward, so I apologize if it feels that way because that isn't my intention. But I just wondered, in all the instances where it might state, for example, his, her, their, that in fact, if that were just changed to there, it would still read grammatically correctly, but it would be less cumbersome and less work. And I just wonder if there was a reason, I suspect there was at the time that the committee made these decisions, to go with the three, his, her, their, rather than just the very gender neutral there, them, they, as an option. Thank you.
I'm happy for you to respond, Marcia.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. Just going back on this, I was the officer in the meeting, not the decision maker, clearly. But my understanding at the discussion that was being had by the group at the time was that they wanted something that was representative of those that they had been liaising with now, the public they'd been liaising with now, and that was where they were, and that's where they came to. That was their preference. So that's why it is what it is.
Lovely, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Councillor Fradgley.
Can I just say that I think all the documents that we have as part of this organisation probably need reviewing in terms of how language changes, and that I think we should be looking at all our documents on a regular basis to check that they are grammatically and culturally correct. But I don't see that happening in a short timescale. But I would like to say that that is actually kept under review.
Any other comments, questions? Okay. There are 4 recommendations to Council, which I'll take together, if there are no objections to that. Recommendations to Council are that the findings of the working group as detailed in the report be noted, that the findings of the working group be recommended at full Council on the 22nd of April 2024, that the proposed date for the changes to be adopted be agreed as detailed in this report, and that responsibility to complete the amendments be delegated to the Democratic Services team within Law and Governance. Do I have a proposer for that? Councillor Fradgley, thank you. And a seconder? Councillor Ostrander, thank you. Okay. Oh,
Chair, may I just record our thanks for the help that we've been given on actually doing the work on this document?
of course.
Have that
Yes.
recorded.
Thank you.
We're going to take a vote on that, Chair.
Yes.
Recommendation to Council.
Yep. So recommendation to Council vote. Who's in favour, please? Good. That's carried. Oh, sorry? Yes, we did. Yeah. Okay, good. Right. Audit next. Yes, the internal audit strategy. I invite Paul Clark to present his report. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Chair. So down to page 61 in our reports pack, internal audit strategy. We're going to be looking at the proposed strategy for 24-25 financial year and also approving the audit charter. So as regards the audit strategy, we've gone through an extensive consultation process in putting together a plan of work for the next financial year. We've met with all members of the Council's management team individually and discussed the risks that are being identified in their areas, and we've then pulled together a draft plan which has been discussed with the overall management team to put together a plan of work which is seeking to give to the committee assurance around the risks that the council faces in delivering its services, the overall governance and financial controls and other controls for the council. This work is to be completed next year and will come together in an annual report which I'm required to present after the end of each financial year as part of an ongoing annual process. So the papers set out the process for putting together the plan. They describe the strategy that we'll be adopting and undertaking internal audit work next year. The annexes, Annex 1 shows the risks that have been identified as strategic risks by the council and identifies where internal audit work considers some of the majority of those risks in the work that we undertake over a period of time. And then Annex 2 on page 79 onwards is the proposed detailed plan of work for 24-25. So that's got a description of the proposed audit coverage, and then on the right-hand column, indicative timing of which quarter next year we propose to undertake the work. And of course that will be then reported into these committee meetings during the year to demonstrate the progress. Page 84 and 85 illustrate that we're not able to audit everything every year. There's a limit to what we can do, and it sets out some areas that we won't be able to complete as things stand at the moment. But we do say that the audit plan is subject to change depending on changing circumstances throughout the year. And so some of the items in that section on page 84 and 85 will be considered for bringing forward if there are necessary delays in audits for 24-25. Just to say on the audit charter, it's very much the same as last year. It's a refresh of the charter. Just bring it to members' attention for review and confirmation. There's no substantive changes in the charter this year, but I would just say that there's likely to be changes next year because the Institute of Internal Auditors have agreed a new set of international standards which will come in next year, so we'll be needing to reflect that, and I'll bring in one of my update reports during 24-25 some more information about that to inform members about those changes. So I'm happy to take questions on the strategy, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Questions, comments? Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Chairman. Paul, you're resource constrained. You can't do everything. What assurance can you give us that there are no undue risks within those areas you won't be able to get to that the council is exposed to? Or put it the other way around, would you be prepared to argue for more resource if you were uncomfortable about not having the resource to do everything you think needs to be done?
Thank you. Yes, it's always a balance of what can be done within the resources that are available. What we do is take account of what's been done in previous years, and if I felt that I wouldn't be able to get enough coverage to be able to produce an evidence-based opinion at the end of the year, then I would definitely be raising that with members. However, I don't feel that we're in that situation. I think if we carry out a plan of work next year as set out, bearing in mind what we know we're going to have completed in the current financial year, then it's a reasonable assurance that we can give. As it says, we can't give absolute assurance. We're based on samples of work that are examined, and we don't look at all the risks, but what we do is prioritise based on the information that's available and taking account of information from other external sources as well. So where there are external reports, we would take account of that, which again give us assurance to members around the operation of the governance of the council.
Any other comments or questions? I'd like to ask a question, and I think it's probably always dangerous to ask a question to which you don't actually know the answer in advance, but I'm going to try it anyway. In the council's budget for the next year and probably for the next 3 years, there's a considerable change programme which will involve the council changing many of the ways in which it works, and I wonder the extent to which it will impact the work that you do in this regard.
Well, certainly where change takes place, that tends to be one of the risk factors that we'll be discussing with the managers when we meet to do the planning. So I'd expect that to be reflected within the programme of work over time. So sometimes it's helpful for internal audit to be involved sort of during a change period and to be able to sort of give assurance on a programme of work. On other occasions, it might be felt more appropriate to allow the implementation of the change, and then we'll come along and do some assurance work afterwards to make sure that it's been implemented as planned. So we do take change programmes into account in the planning.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Actually, I have another question, if I can find. Where is it? Yep. Page 84, the auditable topics not planned for the coming year. Information governance, 2023-24 postponed. I'm just wondering, when was it last audited? Because the column is headed last audited. Oh, sorry. Marcia.
Thank you, Chair. My understanding is, because I've had an approach from David's team actually, to say that information governance, which sits within my remit, was a subject of a review in June or thereabouts. So,
Sorry, was or will?
Will be.
Thank you. Good. Okay. Are there any other comments, questions? Oh, I've lost my page now. Oh, yes. Councillor Ostrander.
I do have a question, maybe a second, depending on the answer to the first. Can someone explain to me, this is on page 85, one of the topics is IT disaster recovery. Can I just have clarification what that entails or what that means? Please.
Yep.
Chair, if I may.
Yes, Marcia, sorry.
Chair, thank you. The manager with responsibility is here in the room, Richard Burrell. Perhaps he'd be better placed to explain that, if you're agreeable, Chair.
Yes, Richard.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. Yeah, disaster recovery is exactly what it is. It's recovering systems post an event that takes all those systems down. So it may be a system failure, a server failure, cyber attack, something like that. So it's bringing back sort of all the systems of the council, perhaps, and the process that we go about in doing so.
Can I ask another question?
Please do.
Because I noticed that database security is a separate item on that list. I guess my concern is that cyber attacks, having worked in an organization where we experienced this, that this is quite a fast-changing, high-risk sort of situation. So, and it looks as though neither of those areas have been audited for the last 4 years, because the data goes back 4 years. So I just was hoping for some reassurance that that is okay, that that's not being audited. I'm sure you do feel it is, but maybe somebody could explain why it feels safe to leave that off this time, given that that is such a risky thing.
If I could just defer to the gentleman on my right.
Yeah, I think maybe there's some overlap in different audits that we undertake. So on the plan for next year and also on this year, there is specific audit on cyber security. So we do pick it up as part of that work. So there hasn't been a specific audit on disaster recovery last year or this year, although they have been undertaken in the past. But we do pick that up as one of the lines of inquiry when we look at cyber security.
Thank you. Are you happy? Good. Okay. Any other questions, comments at this stage? Good. The recommendations are to approve the proposed draft internal audit strategy for 2024-25 and to approve the audit charter. Do I have a proposer? Councillor Shenton, thank you. And a seconder? Councillor Fradgley? Good, thank you. Okay. Right. All those in favour? Okay, I think that's unanimous. Good. Right, moving on. You're up again, Paul. This is your progress report.
Thank you, Chair. So, yes, progress report, page 97. We're progressing well with the internal audit work for the current financial year. Since we brought the last update report, there have been another 7 reports finalised. So those are the ones for climate emergency, the emergency planning, vehicle parking, waste contract, procurement, VAT and PCI DSS. So those have been completed. We've got work underway on property, NNDR, cash collection and cyber. So you can see a lot of work been going on. There is still work to complete those ones that are ongoing, but we are on track to be able to have substantially completed the work and to be able to complete what's required to have an evidence-based annual opinion, which we'll bring to the July committee.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good, thank you. Questions, comments? Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Chairman. On page 96, there's reference to procurement, and it has improved. Your evaluation of it has improved. This is welcome news. It's a long-standing area of concern. Is there any good reason you can foresee at the moment why that shouldn't be even further improved next time you report on it?
So, as you say, welcome. I share your welcome of the improved opinion on the procurement audit. There were a number of areas where we were able to evidence that controls were better, that we got evidence of value for money in the procurement areas. There were still some gaps, so the action plan agrees ongoing work to plug those gaps and to be able to give better assurance, but we'll intend to track the progress of the actions along with the management team over the next few months, and if we've got ongoing concerns, then we'd bring those back to the committee. But I'm hopeful that continued improvement will further continue into next year.
Can I just ask the follow? When would you anticipate next reporting on procurement?
I think for the next audit of procurement, it would be in the following financial year, 25-26. But we will be tracking the actions from the last audit in the interim.
Councillor Fradgley.
Thank you. On page 98, presumably the arrows facing upward shows improvement. A crosswise show steady as she goes. Can you explain why the arrow on waste contract is pointing downwards?
Yeah, so the different opinions that we would give are from limited assurance. One better than that is moderate, the next one is substantial, and the one above that is full assurance. So as the waste contract last time must have been a full assurance opinion, whereas it's substantial this time. To be honest, substantial assurance is a good opinion though. Yeah.
May I ask a question which I perhaps should have asked under the previous item? I'm curious that vehicle parking is a separate entity, both in this report and also the previous item. I'm curious that perhaps the income from green bins is not itemised separately, because that is a massive amount of money. Is it a procedural issue that collecting money is much easier than worrying about parking meters?
Yeah, so not sure I know the answer to that question, to be honest. The green bin...
Actually, Paul, I think Richard wants to give me the answer.
Thank you. Certainly, it is a lot of money. It's about £3 million that we get from car parking income. And in the past, we've taken cash. And because it's cash, it's always been considered a very high risk. So it was looked at annually. In recent years, we've moved away from cash. It's gone cashless. We've had we've had no break-ins at all, no pay and display units stolen at all. So hopefully it might be something that we can look to sort of cut back on, but I think it's more of a historical thing. Right. Moving across to the garden waste, 97% of the transactions go via electronic forms through our website, which is effectively a closed system. It's electronic payments, so it's sort of like an end-to-end process. So there's very little chance of misappropriation of funds, put it that way. So I think that's probably the answer to, although they're similar values, because I think the garden waste is about £2 million.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Richard. Good. Any other comments, questions? No? Okay. There are two recommendations. That the progress report be noted and that the changes to the planned work as set out in paragraphs 1.2.3 and 1.2.4 be approved. Do I have a proposer? Councillor Fradgley. Thank you. And a seconder? Councillor Harvey. Thank you. Okay. Are we all in favour? Yes, I think we are. Good. Okay. Item number 11. Thank you, Paul. Item number 11, introduction to assets, if I've pronounced that correctly. And I invite Richard Burrell to present the report. Please, Richard.
Thank you very much. There is a brief covering report introducing this item. From 2023-24, our external auditors have changed. Previously, it's been Ernst & Young. Following the public sector audit authorities tendering of the services for a number of authorities, assets have been awarded our contract for the next, I believe, how many years? 5 years. 5 years. So with that, could I hand you over to... sorry, you're... Nicola? No, Karen, sorry.
It's okay. As Richard's explained, we've brought to you today an introductory paper in introducing us as a firm to you as your newly appointed external auditors for the 5-year period from the 1st of April 2023. So actually listening to internal audit and reflecting on the papers you've had from internal audit, that's forward-looking. We're still a wee bit backward-looking because we are looking from the 1st of April 2023. The paper, as I say, sets out an introduction to assets. We are a relatively newly formed organisation, and we are new to auditing local government in England. That said, we are, as a team, collectively, we bring a wealth of experience to public sector auditing, including local government, in particular up in Scotland, but also on health sector, central government and education as well. we have been appointed to 27 bodies under the contract, and I am personally responsible for 4 of those, which includes yourselves, but I am also responsible for Wychavon, Worcester City and Malvern Hills as well. We also have touched upon in the introductory paper the activity that we've been doing so far. As you'll appreciate, we are in unprecedented times at the moment with a number of outstanding sets of accounts to be audited. We are keen to get you back on track in terms of going back to what I would call normal or pre-pandemic timescales, but that is going to take a bit of time because I don't know how much the committee is fully aware of the consultations and the proposals to enable councils to get back on track in terms of the audit of the annual accounts. We will be working, and we have been working closely with Richard and his team in terms of what we can do now in terms of the audit of the 23-24 cycle, but we do need to take cognizance of the work that the predecessor auditors need to do in order for them to fully comply with any outcome from the consultation and addressing the backlog is what it's been termed as. So I'm here today as an introduction to introduce ourselves as your new auditors, but equally I am happy to take any questions that you might have about what the landscape looks like at the moment.
Thank you. Comments, questions? Councillor Harvey.
Are you adequately resourced for the task?
We do. I think we have been in a more fortunate position that we are new entrants into the market and have developed and grown what we had previously, but have invested in developing a dedicated public sector team, which we are heavily invested in training and what we would call grow your own. So we do have the resources in place now to deliver. We are a training organisation, so it will be that we do grow and develop continually over those 5 years, but we also look to ensure that we invest and have that continuity throughout the period of time as well.
Second question. Do you foresee any difficulties, in inverted commas, in taking over from another firm? Are there, if you were at Stratford and had been here for a number of years, you would know our systems, etc. You don't know the people, etc., etc. Given that you're taking over from Ernst & Young, is that good? How smooth a process do you anticipate that being?
If I'm completely honest, it's not going to be as smooth as it would typically have been if you had all your accounts previously audited and opinions set on those accounts, because typically what we would do is look to have a handover period with your predecessor auditors, reflecting on the work that they have done, and we place reliance on what we call open imbalances, so the balances that you have brought forward and the work of the predecessor auditors. That process will be challenging and more complex than it typically would have been, depending on the outcome of the consultation and what your predecessor auditors decide to do on your former accounts. So it might be that they do not necessarily complete those audits and provide you with an audit opinion on those audits. They might take the decision to do a disclaimer on those audits, which will typically mean that they have done less work on those, which impacts on us in terms of looking at the open imbalances and the handover period that we have.
I understand. I understand the difficulties involved. Supplementary question really for Richard, I suspect. That sounds to me like more time, which means more money. And the question to you, therefore, is how do we stand in the robustness of the budget as far as audit fees are concerned?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Harvey. Are you referring to the assets budget or the budget that we had for the previous auditors?
Both.
I think the resourcing of the previous audit, the auditors, the budget that we had for that audit followed a similar exercise with the PSAA, but that award came in very cost effective. It was about 46,000. Now, following the latest round, I believe, if I remember rightly, the basic fee is about 135,000. We were warned that costs would go up by 175% of the 22-23 audit fee. Well, we haven't had an audit fee for 22-23, so I guessed it was 175,000. So there's plenty in the budget, if you know, to cover it. Put it that way. And I anticipate, depending on the level of work that Ernst & Young do, that some of that may be required to finish off their audit as well. So there is sufficient within the budget, I feel, to cover both audits.
Good. Are there any other comments or questions at this stage? No? Okay. Right. In which case, I move to the recommendation, which is that the information in Appendix 1 to the report be noted. And also to thank Karen for flying down from Edinburgh for us here this afternoon. Okay. Do I have a proposer, please? Councillor Parker. Thank you. And a seconder? Councillor Ostrander, thank you. Are we all agreed? Good. Thank you. And thank you, Karen. And thank you, Richard, for travelling all the way downstairs. Okay, we now come to a standing item, councillor questions, and Councillor Harvey, I believe, has a question.
That's set out on the paper.
Yep. Okay, do you want to, would you like to read it out, Councillor Harvey, or you'll let us read it out for ourselves?
For the audience.
Yes.
In the interests of all members of the council being aware of the degree of community involvement with the work of the council and its committees via the, excuse me, it's my eyes, broadcast of the proceedings of the council and its committees, could a report be regularly be presented to members of the Audit and Standards Committee at their routine meetings in March and November of each year that provides data on the number of times each meeting of each committee that are broadcast via YouTube has been accessed, please?
Thank you.
The object of the exercise is if we are providing a facility for Joe Public to watch the proceedings, it doesn't seem unreasonable for us to know, in the interest of transparency, how many times Joe Public dials in. We would get some sort of indication of whether this service is really popular and we can start licensing it and selling it, or whether we're going to have to pay people to come and view it.
Thank you. Comments, questions?
I was going to say it
Councillor
sounds
Fredgley.
eminently sensible from Councillor Harvey. I would support that. It would be good to know how many people are dialing in to see what's being said, and actually which committees are people are most interested in, because I think that could be a very useful piece of information.
Sure. What I'd like to know, and I think Mason may be about to tell me, is what work would be involved? How possible will it be to produce this report on a 6-monthly basis?
Well, I am going to have a moan, Chair, but that'll come. I mean, there are 2 people watching Audit and Standards at the moment, which is live, but all the details of streaming and whether people have accessed committee meetings are all on Stratford's YouTube channel. So it's all there for members to look at. I'll just take an example with Planning Committee, and many people may go back in to actually look at a Planning Committee. So whether at the moment we've got 335 views, a lot of people, and especially the committee teams, they go back in to check the minutes and also the YouTube. So it's clicking every time they go back in. So it's not a true reflection. It's probably close thereabouts, but it's not quite a true reflection of the people who have actually accessed it. Also, I mean, when this is live, we can tell who's actually watching it live. But with Planning Committee, I went in on as number 26 viewer. When I finished the committee meeting, I believe it was 97. The next day it went up to 167, and today it's at 335. So I think it's a bit like catch-up TV. A lot of people don't watch it on the night anymore. They watch it during the day. But all the details are in front of you on the YouTube channel. The second point about the committee team, they're already overstretched as it is, Chair, and they've got 3 elections in 1 year. So I was hoping that the committee would see that factor, that you're already overstretching a team as it is, when the details are already on the council's YouTube channel.
Thank you, Mesa.
The difficulty
Councillor Harvey.
Well, the difficulty with all that is that I doubt whether there are very many councillors who know that that information is available, and it would only give, if you did look, it only gives you a snapshot. I'm not interested in just snapshots. I'm interested in trends. To take Councillor Fradgley's point, it's important to know what's changing over time, and I don't mind as long as the information is prepared on a consistent basis. Do your dipstick a month after a meeting or whatever. I don't care. As long as you've got a methodology that you're happy with. I don't think, to be blunt, there are times when councillors make reasonable requests for data and information, and it really isn't. It isn't welcome to be told, no, you do it. That's essentially what we're being told. And I don't think it's reasonable for us to I think it is reasonable for us to expect a report every 6 months on a consistent basis. And I know it's going to be only indicative, and I know there are flaws in it, but nevertheless, currently we have no information, and some information on a consistent basis would be better than none. And we would be able to see trends, and we'd be able to see comparison between committees, what people really are interested in, and we'd be in a better position to talk to our residents as a result. So I make no apology for asking.
Marcia.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, as the politicians, you make the decision about what it is you prefer, having heard the question that's been raised by Councillor Harvey. But having heard about the resourcing issue, it would be inappropriate for me not to stress the point that there may be a resource issue to doing this for you. But clearly, if that's what you decide, I just ask you to be very aware of the resourcing implications you've heard about from Mesa.
Councillor Fraser.
May I ask at the next committee you come back with those resourcing issues to see if they are manageable or not?
Okay. Chair.
Yes. Marcia.
So regarding day-to-day resourcing issues, as you know, within the Constitution, there's a bit of a split of responsibilities. So day-to-day staffing issues would normally sit with the officers within the respective areas, so that you as the politicians can lead strategically where you sit. So in terms of that split, that would still be constitutionally what would happen. But I would be more than happy to come back after I've had a chance to speak with Mason and his team about some of those resourcing issues. But I would just stress some of that has been alluded to with elections coming up as well.
I'm surprised that we're not talking about having some form of IT program which could analyse this data. So it should, in my terms, it should be management information for management committee, and it should be produced as a byproduct of normal systems. Managers should be just as interested, staff and managers should be just as interested in this data as councillors should be.
And I'd agree with that comment, Councillor Harvey. I was just stating the point about the resourcing issue and going back to the point that the decision about whether or not you want that data is up to yourselves. But it wouldn't be a full enough debate without the officers just explaining some of the concerns currently.
Councillor Shenton.
Thank you, Chair. Would a compromise, and I'm suggesting a compromise here, but would a compromise be where we just look at one committee initially to get some idea of what data is available and the limits of that data and the resource issue connected with that one committee? Because the motion at the moment, or the question is across all committees. I'm just wondering if that's a sensible way forward for the time being, just to see we get a feel for the numbers, because it may be that, you know, the number of hits, if you like, which is what we're looking at, is actually, it depends on, if you like, on the subject content as much as anything in some committees. I mean, planning, for instance, if it had been like last week and the Fox and Hounds had been one of the issues, you can imagine the number of hits would be dramatic, and that wouldn't be comparable with any other. I'm not seeking to weaken your question, Councillor Harvey. I'm just wondering whether there's a pragmatic way forward on this.
On a pragmatic basis, I'd be quite happy as an interim step, so to speak, towards perfection of seeing a selection of committees, provided there aren't too many audit and standards meetings in there, because that is just too easy.
It's just too exciting. As a matter of interest, Mesa, because I honestly don't know the answer, how many committees are we talking? I mean, we're talking about full council and committees. How many are covered in this way?
This is audit and standards. I'm sorry. We've got audit and standards, we've got planning committee, we've got regulatory committee, we've got climate change panel, we've got the cabinet, we've got overview and scrutiny, we've got licensing panel, we've got council, housing investment panel. Any more, Howard? Employment committee. So yes, there are 10.
About 10. Yeah. Okay. It's interesting you say one. I'm not sure one's a compromise, Ian. Yeah, I think.
Somewhere between one and what Councillor Harvey wants. Just trying to be pragmatic, give officers a chance to have a look at it without incurring lots of effort into it.
I'm being serious about it. There is the principle of transparency at stake here.
Yes, but there are a lot of other things that we're not measuring as well, aren't there? The thought occurs. I mean, for example, how often are press releases read on the council website? If we're talking about communications. Councillor Shenton.
That's a nice addition to it.
Well, of course, with press releases, you're not really interested in the number of people who read the press release. You're the number of people who read the press release as it appears in the press. That's what's really important.
Well, you just want people to read it, don't you? Right, I'm not sure where we go from here, Marcia.
So, Chair, just regarding what I've heard just now, the question is really whether or not, in terms of this question, you as the decision makers want to go forward with us going forward and doing the report every 6 months, or, as you've heard, which has been referenced, possibly allowing an interim suggestion, which is, I don't know, I think I heard 5 committees or so being the subject of an initial report that comes back and you get a flavour for it. And I'm pausing there just to check that was my understanding.
I'd be even prepared to go, not that it's up to me, but I'd even be prepared to go down to 3, provided it's on the data available, it's the 3 committees that are most frequently viewed, because that would be a better dipstick than audit and standards, for instance.
And certainly, myself and Mesa have invisible contact, and we're both in agreement that that would be more than manageable for the interim period, but the decision's yours.
Councillor Shenton.
Seconded.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, can we just decide which committees?
Okay. Councillor Harvey, are you going to propose some committees?
Well, the 3, if we're talking of the big ones, I would talk about council, cabinet, and planning for 3.
That seems reasonable to me, the 3 big ones.
Chair,
Your committee, Councillor Fradgley.
I just think I'd be interested to know how many people come into the climate change group as well. Has that...
Chair, can I just answer that?
Yes.
Can we move on to that committee?
So, Chair, I think looking at how we used to broadcast things, we used to just retain those 3 committees, Cabinet, Council, Planning, sort of acknowledging they're the most popular. Perhaps if we wanted to do an analysis of what the public are viewing and taking interest, it might be more beneficial to compare, say, 1 or 2 of those most popular committees with, say, a less, or what we might expect to be a less popular committee, like the Climate Change Panel, just to give a broader view of the situation.
Okay, so we're talking 4 then, are we? Or
No, still 3.
still 3, so which are we dropping?
One of you popular ones.
I wouldn't be happy to drop any of the big 3. If you want to add on a small one, we think it's very limited, that's fine. By definition, it's going to be less counting, but I think the 3 big ones are really important.
Marcia.
Thank you, Chair. If it needs to be 4, and that's what you decide, we'll have to work with it. It's only an interim request at this time, as I understand it. So if that's what you're requesting, then we'll have to work with that. And if you don't mind, Chair, if it could be considered in that report at that time that we talk about what, if any, implications it had on resourcing for us.
Yes. No, absolutely. And are we talking about doing this for the first time in November? I think March, November was your suggestion, Councillor Harvey. So we're talking about November?
Preferably, if I hear the resource constraint problem, fine. If it really is impossible to do it for November 24, then it'll have to be March 25. But I would prefer November 24, if possible.
It doesn't seem unreasonable. That is 6 months from now. Yeah, okay. Good. Right. Oh, Councillor Parker.
Sorry, have we actually listed the 3 yet?
Yes, it's 4 now. It's growing.
It really is 4.
It's, as I understand it, Council, Cabinet and Planning plus climate change. Okay. Good. Right. I don't think it's not something we have a vote about, is it? It's going to be done. Good. Okay. Urgent business is the last item, and there's none has been received. So I think I shall declare this meeting